各位记者朋友，大家
Good afternoon. Welcome to today's press conference. Now the floor is open.
谢谢发言人。总台央视记者提问：日前，在联合国大会第3委
CCTV at the Third Committee of the UN General Assembly, despite the so-called concerns of Australia, the US and a handful of Western countries over issues related to Xinjiang and Xizang, over 100 countries voiced support for China's position in various ways and opposition to interference in China's internal affairs on the pretext of human rights. What's your comment? On October 22nd, at the Third Committee of the 79th session of the UNGA, Pakistan delivered a joint statement on behalf of over 80 countries. They pointed out that issues related to Xinjiang and Xizang are China's internal affairs. They spoke against the interference in China's internal affairs on the pretext of human rights and stood for abiding by the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and respecting the right of people of each state to choose independently the path for development fit for their national conditions. Over 20 other countries expressed support for China by making statements either individually or collectively. A total of over 100 member states voiced their support for China's just position. It demonstrates what the international community truly stands for and shows that the attempt of a handful of Western countries, including Australia and the US, to resort to political manipulation on the pretext of human rights will gain no support and never succeed. Promoting and protecting human rights is the common cause of humanity and needs international solidarity and cooperation and joint response. Australia, the US, and a handful of other Western countries, out of their ideological bias, stoked confrontation in multilateral platforms for their selfish political interest, which undermines international fairness and justice and is by no means what the international community wants. Australia, long plagued by systemic racism and hate crimes, have severely violated the rights of refugees and immigrants and left indigenous people with vulnerable living conditions. Australian soldiers have committed heavy crimes in Afghanistan and other countries during their military operations overseas. The US and some other Western countries have had a bad record in racism, gun violence, judicial unfairness, wealth gap, abuse of force, unilateral sanctions, and other issues. These Western countries turn a blind eye to their own human rights issues at home, but meanwhile point their fingers at the other countries. This says a lot about their hypocrisy in human rights issues. We urge these countries to face up to and address their own severe human rights issues, stop doing the wrong things such as politicizing and using human rights issues as tools, and play a constructive role in international cooperation on human rights issues. Next one, please.
Hi, question from
法新社，印度外密表示，莫迪总理将会和习近平主席今日在金砖峰会上会面，您能否予以证实并给予细节，比如会议的时间？
If anything comes up, we will release information in a timely way.
下一个问题。
Next one, please.
还有其他问题吗？
Anything else?
Hello, 好的，发言人好，北京日报记者提问。我们注意到日前。
Beijing Daily recently, the International Energy Agency, or IEA, released its annual World Energy Outlook 2024 and Renewables 2024, suggesting that the global energy market is entering an age of electricity led by China, with China driving the rise of electric mobility. The IEA's executive director said that we are now in a world where almost every energy story is essentially a China story. However, some media believe that China's current energy transition plan is too conservative and China could do more. What's your comment? I also noted the reports you mentioned. China has always placed high importance on addressing climate change and actively promoted the green transition of energy and structural adjustment of industries. Over the past decade, China has generated over half of its domestic electricity consumption increase through the increase in new clean energy generation accounted for over 40% of the world's annual additional installation of renewable energy and reduced carbon dioxide emissions by about 3 billion tons. It is one of the countries with fastest energy intensity reduction and the top one user of renewable energy. China has established the world's largest carbon emissions trading market, carried out green energy projects cooperation with more than 100 countries and regions, built a number of landmark hydropower, photovoltaic, and wind power projects in fellow developing countries, and stopped building new coal power projects overseas. China's new trio have developed rapidly in open competition, forming advanced green production capability and making important contributions to the global energy transition. And in response to the comments from some Western media that you mentioned, let me point out that China, in accordance with domestic conditions and stage of development, has been advancing energy transition in a coordinated and balanced way, and working to realize a virtuous cycle in high-quality economic and social development by nurturing new quality productive forces. That said, to realize global energy transition goals, all countries need to work together. Developed countries in particular need to honor their words and create favorable conditions for international green transition. Protectionism, unilateralism, and politicization will only harm the common interests of the international community. The story of global energy transition should not be a China story. Rather, it should be a global story of solidarity and cooperation. The third plenum of the CPC Central Committee has set the direction for the future development of clean energy in China. China will continue to uphold the vision of ecological civilization, deepen international green cooperation with all countries, work with other countries to promote sustainable energy development, and make greater contributions to the global response to climate change and energy transition. Next one, please.
Hi, question from AFP.
法新社，以色列表示已经杀死了真主党的新领导人，中方对此有何评论？
中方对当前
China is deeply concerned over the turmoil and escalation in the Middle East. We oppose the violation of sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity of Lebanon. We oppose any moves that escalate the tensions and leads to further escalation of the situation. We hope that all sides can return back to the track of political settlement and promote the de-escalation of the situation in the region. Next one, please.
AFP.
法新社，中国将大众中华区总裁驱逐，这是因为他在血液中测出了大麻，并且拘禁了10天。您能否提予更多细节？
你提到这个问题啊，
According to my knowledge, the personnel from the Volkswagen Joseon Sampio, because of the use of cocaine, has been detained for 10 days by Chinese public security authorities and has been deported out of China. For anything specific, I'd refer you to competent authorities in China.
下一个问题，
Next one, please.
还有其他问题吗？
Anything else?
Another question from AFP.
法新社，台湾国防部表示，监测到了中国的航母过航台湾海峡，中方能否予以证实？追问一下，对于今年初的军演，台湾国防部表示这将会导致战争，并且是一次挑衅，中方对此有何回应？
台湾是中国的一个。
Taiwan is a province of China. There is no defense ministry or defense minister in Taiwan. It is also not a question related to foreign affairs. Taiwan is part of China's territory. Carrying out operations in territorial seas and territory of China is very lawful and legitimate. No matter what Taiwan says or do, it will not change the fact that Taiwan belongs to China and the prevailing trend that China will realize and definitely will realize national reunification. Next one, please.
还有其他问题吗？
Anything else?
好，那今天的记者会到此结束。
Then let's call it a day. Thank you for coming.